Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all the participants who are joining right now, and I see the attendees rising in the number. Let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Caroline Glofka. I'm from the Global Coffee Platform, the manager for membership and corporate partnerships. I would like to welcome you very warmly to this GCP Field Day webinar, which today will take us to Vietnam. A special warm welcome to Tiane Grönefeld, the lead manager sustainability for coffee from Chibo. Pleased to have you in this call. Good afternoon, Tiane. And Dr. David Hayes, the country representative for sustainable coffee with Chibo, who's going to later help us with the questions, answer the questions. I should say good evening to you. And also from JDE, the lead manager sustainability at Do Nyok Su. Pleased to have you and good evening to you as well. Then I brought a few colleagues of mine with me. That is Annette Pencil, our executive director, Mary Pettit, our ambassador for North America, and my colleague from Vietnam, the program manager of Vietnam, Chung, who will bring to you most of this webinar today. The agenda today, looking into the Collective Action Initiative. What is it and the context? In which context do they stand in the Global Coffee Platform and in the country? Here especially, we're going to talk about the responsible use of agro-inputs for coffee in Vietnam. With that, I'd like to hand over to my colleague Annette Pencil, who will say a few words of welcome and in these challenging times of COVID-19.
Thank you, Caroline. A good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody here who has been joining us for the webinar today. Thank you for joining and for your interest. As you mentioned, Caroline, it's indeed, we are living quite unprecedented, turbulent times due to Corona. That's impacting us everywhere, some more and some less, but probably we don't yet know really the consequences of this pandemic on our lives, our well-being, and also the economic conditions going forward. Nevertheless, and actually even because of that, we from the Global Coffee Platform, we believe that in these times, it's even more important to stay strong as a global coffee community and to work together and to work perhaps even harder and in new ways so that we continue to work towards what we are longing for, that is a thriving and sustainable coffee sector for generations to come. Our members and the country platforms we're working with in Vietnam and elsewhere are doing it, addressing the pressing sustainability challenges together to bring about tangible change in coffee farming communities. And this is, for example, being done through GCP collective action initiatives. Today, we're actually going to hear more about a new exciting one that looks at improving the use of agro-inputs in Vietnam's coffee production over the next couple of years. The issue is a well-known one, but we invite you to learn more, roll your sleeves up, and come join this collective action initiative. Before we get there, a few words on what I've learned about Vietnam and the COVID-19 situation at the very moment, compared to several other countries where coffee is being produced or consumed or elsewhere in the world. Vietnam probably has not been affected so heavily than others, but there have been restrictions and there has been social distancing measures all over the country, which is now, as we hear, being loosened step by step. Yet our members and partners and also the team in Vietnam have concerns and see several challenges that also relate to coffee production in the coming season. That includes, of course, the low coffee price, which has been a persistent concern over the last 2-3 years, but also the droughts that are expected to hit in the next 2-3 months in the Central Highlands, where most of Vietnam's coffee production is happening. So that is a concern. And of course, there is concerns about potential, like shortly future implications of COVID-19 if there was a second wave, and if that second wave was restricting then harvesting activities that Vietnamese coffee farmers are looking at and starting at the end of this calendar year. So in view of that, GCP Vietnam has been working with members and partners and the Vietnamese Coffee Coordination Board, the platform there, to look at what can be done to raise awareness about COVID-19 and also to look into mitigation measures. If you're interested in keeping updated on that, we will share information in our new GCP bulletin on COVID-19 and of course in our newsletter, the GCP Espresso. With that, and without further ado, I would like to hand over to Chung to guide us through the exciting new initiative that we're talking today.
Good morning, good afternoon, and also good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for spending your time to participate in this webinar. And with that, we want to introduce about our collective action initiative on the responsible use of agro-input for coffee in Vietnam. So as you see in the name of the initiative, the main goal of the initiative is really focused on improving the responsible use of agro-inputs in the coffee sector. To do that, through various activity and intervention, we aim to we're going to have the testing and also testing and introducing the new alternative, and also based on that we're going to draw the lesson and also the good practice in order to disseminate the best with management to all stakeholders in the coffee sector. For all that one, we are expect that we're going to reduce the environment's pollution and also reduce the production cost for the farmers. And at the end, so all of that's going to support for the farmers who to improve the well-being of the farmers. For all that kind of thing, all the invention activity we're going to do, the thing that we want to get the coffee produced in Vietnam and then to be exported abroad to the world that meet the requirements of the destination country. And through our own that activity from at the local level and so on, we also aim to have the policy recommendation to be submitted to the government and make and advocate for the government for the policy changes in favor of the sustainable coffee sector.
So to give you a bit of a background how this initiative started or why it's so important, GCP has started to collect data at a farm level to understand the farm practices, how they relate to the existing national sustainability curriculum, which is a set of good agricultural practices. And we have collected over thousands of data points already and have analyzed them a bit. And one of the learnings was that also agro-inputs, the use is not consistent and in parts even problematic. So there is not always, the agro-inputs are not knowledgeable distributed or used. Most coffee farmers do apply them, pesticides and fertilizers, but the usage is not so much on based on good knowledge or taking it even a step further on soil tests they have conducted and what is then really needed. So there's additionally a limited understanding about diseases and pests, especially new ones that are coming up. And what then the best treatment is. So often pesticides and agrochemicals are applied wrongly or excessively, which leads then to additional unnecessary cost at the farm level. And of course, then that also burdens the environment. this excessive use and wrong use can also lead then to exceeding market requirement, maximum residue levels that have been defined. We'll talk about this a little bit later. So this is the background about the member initiative. The criteria for a collective action initiative, and I have just used the old word, member initiative. We have recently changed the name, so a few of you might still know it as the member initiative, which is now the same thing as a collective action initiative, the new name. What are they? Quickly to explain that to you, how they are set up, what the criteria is. They are a collective pre-competitive co-investment initiative, which invites GCP members, but also GCP non-members to work together and sit down and address an identified issue, a sustainability issue, a gap at the national level that is being then addressed together. But this is not only made up by members or non-members, it's also always aligned with the curriculum, with the strategy of the National Coffee Platform. And in Vietnam, this is the Vietnam Coffee Coordination Board, VCCB, who are very aware of this initiative going on and developing. It's also a criteria to align with already existing initiatives in order not to duplicate, but rather to find synergies and accelerate each other, especially with already or to use learnings that are already existing. The results are treated a little bit different than usual supply chain projects, because the results here are continuously shared back with the sector. So not only on a local level in Vietnam, that would be with the coffee sector there, that will be the case, but also on a global level. So results will be shared publicly and throughout the duration of this initiative, to hopefully also benefit other countries where they can use the results and of course tailor them according to their needs. I have mentioned it's an invitation to GCP members, but also non-members are invited. These are the main criteria. There are a few more, but I don't like the minimum of 3 years, but this initiative is already exceeding that with 4.5 years. These are the core and main criteria for members to join. With that, I'd like to hand over to my colleague Chung again.
And over here, we talk about how this initiative really aligns with the country platform and also with the overall government strategy towards the sustainability and also for the sustainable coffee sector. As you might know, Vietnam Coffee Coordination Board is the multi-stakeholder platform. It is chaired by the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, and it's comprised of the 3 main subcommittee focus on production, focus on processing and trading, and the third one focus on the policy advocacy. So for the 3 pillars of this board, they are working throughout the value chain of the coffee sector and represent the own coffee stakeholder in the country in order to facilitate and develop and promote the sustainability of the coffee sector. For this initiative, which is focused on the correct and responsible use of agro-input, this is a long-term capacity of production for economic, environment, and social aspect. And for this capacity, it's really aligned with the government strategy, as I mentioned before, about the strategy towards the sustainability in the coffee sector and in agriculture sector in general. And based on own intervention, supports, research, at the field level. So all of that and all of that are going to bring up, going to be brought up to the policy level for the policy advocacy, and on the result and achievement, and also the weakness and the result and the lesson as well, going to be shared. We own coffee sector stakeholder in Vietnam for the scalability. And we also want to mention that the coffee is real, the VCB is very important role in the coffee's in this initiative, as they are the VCB will be a key member of the steering committee of this initiative. So right now we dive deep into this initiative. For a quick glance at this initiative, so you can see on the screen over here, this is uh, the main information for the initiative. The responsible use of agro-input for coffee in Vietnam initiative will focus in the Central Highland region of Vietnam, including the five coffee producing province in the Central Highland. And at the policy level, it's going to work at the provincial and national level as well. Throughout the initiative, we're going to aim more than 200,000 coffee farmers mainly focus in the Central Highland. Of course, the numbers of farmer targeted might be bigger because we avoid the double counting through in our activity. Therefore, through our various intervention at the field level, we expect that this number will be higher. The initiative will also designed for 4.5 years, as mentioned before, and it's going to start from this June and going to finish by the end of 2024. Throughout the 4.5 year, it will be comprised of two main phase. For the for the first phase, we're going to work, as mentioned before, that we're working on selected agro input and trying to test the practice, and based on that, we can have the lesson and also promote the best with management practice. And for own lesson, own achievement and result collected from this phase during the first 2.5 years, from June 2020 to December 2022, from all the lesson and result from that, we're going to move to the phase 2, in which that we're going to expand to other chemical, to others hazardous chemical, as well as other alternative and with management practice. The initiative for the 4-year and 4.5-year initiative going have been budgeted for the budget of 1,230,000 euro. Okay, I think that the next two slides will be more expected from everyone, because it's the main thing that we're going to do, and the output and outcome we really expect to achieve after 4.5 years. The initiative will be designed in two main components. The first component focus on the first component is we call the applied field research. It means that within this component, we're going to have a series of different intervention at the field level, in which that we research intervention over there, in order to have better understanding about the shortcoming in the agro input uses in the Central Highland province. And based on that, we also have better understanding about the current practice over there. And and particularly, so we are going to have much better understanding about the situation of the glyphosate issue over there. With all of that, we're going to have the testing and trial for others in alternative, and based on that, we can also develop and introduce the alternative that is more sustainable and more better practice for all coffee stakeholders in the Central Highland. In more detail, so we're going to have the four specific the four category of intervention. The very first thing that we're going to have to do the inventory of agrochemical supplier and product to be sold over there. For that, to do that, we're going to do the mapping, and also we're going to survey the different activity surveys and support for different work over there. We're going to do the mapping and also survey for the agrochemical supplier and products in the province. That will be done thoroughly and in the Central Highland. Based on that, we're going to have the baseline understanding data and also understanding of the current practice over there. The second group of activity is that we're going to do the mapping of agrochemical uses, in which that we're going to do the mapping of agro input use and throughout the Central Highland, and based on that, we're going to identify the key issue, the hotspot, and better understand about why those kind of pesticide or herbicide are used in the region, and with the very detailed information regarding the location, the condition, the type, the pest, and also other related information regarding the intercrop or the farm system as well. The third group of activity is that we're going to have the field testing under the control condition of the glyphosate and other alternative herbicide and weed management practice. We're going to have field testing over there, and with the control area and non-control area, and based on that, we're going to collect the data regarding the labor, regarding the cost, regarding productivity, the residue level, the doses, all kind of data related to that, and based on that, we're going to have the comparison before and after, and also in the control area and out of the control area, and for on that kind of thing that we're going to have the report, and as well as to have the economics study, and for that, it's going to be shared with the coffee sector. The last group category of intervention in this component is that we're working on the economic study on the cost of coffee production in the farm. We apply different weed management practice, and in with that, we're going to have the research on different farm with different management practice. They can with or without uses of pesticide or herbicide, or for others alternative practice. And based on that, we also had the comparison between different area, and also before and after the application, and to have a very detailed economic analysis. And throughout on the intervention over here, you see that one one activity that will be thoroughly working through this is the I would say the communication or the dissemination of the result to the coffee actor. Own result from the survey and mapping of the agro input uses in the Central Highland, or also the survey and inventory of the suppliers over there, as also the economic research study or the field setting result. All of that is we're going to have a series of various event in all and others communication channels in order to disseminate the information to the coffee actor in Vietnam. For that, yeah, will you please? Oh, yeah. So for that, from all the result and evidence from the intervention at the local level, from the field research over there, all of that going to be consolidated and documented and brought up to the policy level. Also, and through various activity, including the awareness raising, communication, dialogue with various coffee actors over there, in order to advocate the government for the better restriction of glyphosate and other hazardous chemical or pesticides uses, and on the other hand, promote others environment friendly and also other sustainable weed management practice. To do that, we are going to have 5 big intervention. The first thing, the very first thing that we focus on the glyphosate issue. We're going to work on the paper with the information resources from various resources in order, and based on that, we're developing the paper, and we develop a policy note submitted to government in order to lobby the government for the restriction of the glyphosate uses in Vietnam. Together with that, so we are working very much on the awareness raising campaign on the risk of the excess use of agro input, especially focus on the glyphosate and other hazardous chemicals. For that, we're going to have series of different communication event, and also working on various communication channel at the local level, provincial level, and also at the national level as well. Another thing that in parallel with that, and also to complement to that, so we're going to work on the weed management practice, in which that we're going to consolidate the evidence, the result from the current weed management practice, and based on that, we develop the integrated weed management manual. The document will be developed and then share with all coffee stakeholder and also with the government in order to have it institutionalized and recognized. And based on that, we are going to work with coffee actors, trader roster, extension system, and NGO organization, and so on, in order to disseminate the best weed management practice manual to the farmers. Another activity intervention that we're working on, that is so far IDS and Department of Plant Protection have been working and developing an pesticide app, a smartphone app. And through this initiative, we want to have further promotion for the app. In which that we're going to have the review of that, and then we further promote the use of this app to own coffee actor, and expect that in the futures we thousands of actors going to use this app to have better understanding about what kind of chemical to be banned or allow, or how they can use this, in a very practical and hand-on easy methods. And the last intervention is for this is work focusing on the development of a collection scheme for the use of agrochemical containers. This is so far that the chemical agro input container, particularly the chemical container, have been not good managed and cheated so far. Therefore, we're going to have the mapping of the current situation of the collection and also the treatment of that. And based on that, we can deploy a kind of a pilot for the collection scheme, and through our own that kind result and practice over there, we're going to have the policy advocacy to the government for the to recommend the best practice on the handling of the chemical containers.
Thank you, Chung.
Yeah.
That is quite amazing. So thank you for sharing with us the details of the field research and the policy development. Of course, at this moment here, we're showing a quite high level. Behind this are various detailed activities, and they will, of course, be broken down into annual work plans. Chung has mentioned that this initiative is running for over 4.5 years. I have brought with me Mary, my colleague, who's based in the US, and we wanted to have a little chat on the importance of this initiative and coffee from Vietnam for markets. From what we know, we are by no means experts on this topic. However, in Europe, the use of agro-inputs and especially certain ingredients like glyphosate are being hotly discussed. But here, this initiative is looking not only into that, but the wider use of agro-inputs. So national coffee associations and the European Coffee Federation are discussing this. There are maximum residue levels defined for certain ingredients. And of course, if coffee coming into these markets that exceed these levels, it makes it really unusable. So this is, initiative will help address one of these issues. Mary, how are agro-inputs or coffee from Vietnam being discussed in the US?
Hello, everyone. It is a really important topic as we are all seeing new generation rising, taking over leadership of the coffee industry for the future. I think we need to take a minute to recognize how critical it is that our pre-competitive collaboration allows us to develop a foundation and a scale whereby we can address important social issues and important agro-input issues, because they're common issues that we all share. Vietnamese coffee is a tremendously important origin for North America. It started out perhaps being used primarily in value blends, but that is changing, and we're seeing Vietnamese coffee become very active in the specialty segment, in the soluble segment, exciting consumers to reach out and try new coffees and keep coffee as a major beverage component in their daily lives. For instance, there's a new generation of entrepreneurs contributing to a very vibrant coffee shop culture, and we're seeing products like salt coffee and egg coffee, fruit coffee and yogurt coffee, coconut coffee even, coming to the US with a Vietnamese flavor, sharing the traditions and coffee culture of Vietnam in North America and indeed around the world, and also in domestic consumption in Vietnam. So many varieties are evolving, both based on traditional roast and ground coffee, but also in soluble applications. And I think that it's clear that Vietnamese coffee isn't used just in quote unquote value blends anymore. And so this is a great leadership opportunity for us to come together as a community to flex our pre-competitive muscle, to create step-by-step activities and clear goals with the steering committee to show that we as an industry are taking these social and agrochemical challenges seriously, and we're working together to create a healthy foundation for the entire industry in a pre-competitive way. And that's really the purpose of the Global Coffee Platform.
Mm. Thank you, Mary. Yeah, thank you for sharing that insight of the importance of Vietnamese coffee in the US. Of course, it's also in many countries, Vietnamese coffee is important. We'll come to that a little bit later again. Important it is also the topic of the proper use of agrochemicals, agro-inputs, and especially centered around the benefit of the farmer in the end, because that's where our coffee comes from. To have best practices at the farm level, that's where this initiative is rooted. There are already some committed co-funding partners, which is IDH, the Sustainable Trade Initiative, Jacobs, Dow Egberts, JDE, Nestle, and Chibo, who have already committed to push this initiative from planning into practice. So this is great news. One view I would like to invite now my colleague Chung again to chat a little bit with C. They are both based in Vietnam, and maybe you can share some insights of the importance of this initiative for the Vietnamese coffee sector.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining this. We know that you have been working in the coffee sector for many years, and for various organizations and companies as well. So from your point of view, why do you think that this collective action initiative on responsible use of agro-input is very important and necessary for the coffee sector in Vietnam? Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Chung. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, everywhere, whoever you are. First, I would like to thank you very much, GCP, for inviting JD to attend this webinar. Very much appreciate. Back to your question, I think my point of view that Vietnam is coffee sector in Vietnam is very important for the economic development. You know that in the year 2018, Vietnam we exported 1.8 million tons, and with the worth of 3.6 billion US dollar, and it's a contribution for around 3% of the GDP for the country. The coffee sector is account for around 10% of agricultural production turnover, and the main coffee production in the Central Highlands of Vietnam, and then it's that's why it's around 95%, and its contribution for the coffee sector contribution about 30% of the GDP for the Central Highland. So to be confirmed with you that Vietnam coffee sector in Vietnam is a very important commodity for the economic development in Vietnam. With the efforts from the government, from the different stakeholders, from the government, from the private sector, from the Coffee Research Institute, from the NGO, and especially from the 640,000 coffee households in Vietnam, especially the coffee farmer in Vietnam is working very hard. They can spend around 10 to 12 hours a day working in the farm. So we are very proud to say Vietnamese coffee farmer can produce the coffee yield is the highest in the world. Some farmer can produce around 10 tons per hectare, but in average around 2.5 to 2.7 tons per hectare. So that is a very intensified farming practice from the coffee farmer in Vietnam. So because of the intensified farming practice, it also makes a lot of challenging negative impact for the social, economic, and environmental issue. We know that most of the farmers, they use a lot of the overuse of the input, for example, water irrigation, underground water resources using, or chemical application, fertilizer application, and especially in the recent year, it's also standard organization, the government, the research, and find out that chemical application, the ban pesticide is one of a very priority concern and very big challenge for the coffee sector in Vietnam. So that's why you guys just make a very well overview of the project. That's why the CAI, a collective action initiative, is born. We would like very much to thank a very big thanks for GCP, a very good initiative to mobilize from the different member, different stakeholder, from the roster, from the government, from the NGO, to contribution for this one. You know that in the last many years, to address the issue I just mentioned, that there are a lot of programs from the government, from private, and also from the many NGO organizations doing a lot of effort to address the issue. However, the activity of the program of the project so far is very diversified of the intervention, very much concerned about the water issue, fertilizer, pesticide, the gap, good agriculture practice. I mean, that's the project is a very diversified action. However, if you look at the presentation from Caroline and also from Chung in the last slide, so this is a this CAI, collective action initiative, is a very special one. It's very focused only on glyphosate and also the chemical applications. So I mean that this is a great opportunity for the coffee sector in Vietnam. So Chung, I would like to confirm that is really very important. In your presentation, that we do a lot of research, communication, transfer technology to make sure to change the awareness for the farmer. I mean, that's the most important, that we would like very much to expect that to change the awareness for the farmer is very important to make sure that the farmer to apply in a responsible way. I know that in some farmer nowadays, even they apply a lot of chemical, but some of them cannot realize how it's impact to their health, their environmental, and also how it's impact to their income and their investment as well. So I mean that this is a very great program to very do hope that it can be a contribution in your goal to address the issue. So I mean that another point that Vietnam is still a very small domestic consumption. Is most of our coffee is exported, as I mentioned, 1.8 million tons. So it means that that initiative is a great opportunity for the well repair for the future as well, right? So we export around 60% of our coffee to European markets. So it means that that's a very great opportunity for the well repair, for the farmer, for the coffee sector, for the coffee value chain, and also very good opportunity for the government. As you mentioned, Chung, in your presentation, that is great to advocacy, to make the policy for the government to make sure that the government to be in a good decision to be reduce of the chemical, especially the glyphosate, and also to be transferred to the farmer how to application in a responsibility way. As you all know, that Vietnamese government in last year in April, they make the ban remove of the glyphosate. However, because of some issues, some policy, so it will be extending until June next year. So, however, I think that's a very suitable time to introduce this initiative to make the future application. I mean that I repeat again. It's very good to repair. Also, the demand of the buyer is very important from my point of view. So I do hope that with the program we can reduce a lot of environmental issues, economic issues, and also to improving the farmer income. Last but not least, for your information, with our JD Common Grounds, we also work very close to our on our supplier. Pesticide application ban pesticide is also very priority concern from our company. So that's why JDE would like decide to contribution about for this program in the pre-competitor. So we very do hope that we believe and we very do hope that GCP is a very good position for this position to coordinate this program. We very appreciate and we very expect that GCP in the position of the coordination to use the very efficiency and extent from our contribution to make sure that our resources can come to the coffee farmer to improve the situation at the moment, especially in terms of the glyphosate application and also with the chemical application. By the way, I think that's in order to have a more impact, more farmer, not only 200,000 at a Chung presentation. However, I think that in this opportunity, I think that GCP, you guys can call for more organization, NGO, any company to be on board. So I mean that's we still need a lot of additional contribution on board from another organization to make more impact for the coffee farmer, especially in terms of chemical application. So I think somehow to transfer your message back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. C.
Yeah, thank you, C, for the insights into your view being in Vietnam on the benefits for the farmer, the environment, the health, but also the government in the end to improve their policies on this. With that, I'd like to welcome again Tianne Grönefeld from Chibo. Thanks for being in this webinar again. Tianne, Chibo has been very early interested in this topic. In the Collective Action Initiative, you are not only active or wanting to participate in this initiative, you are also participating in Brazil, an initiative. Why has Chibo decided to join a Collective Action Initiative? What do you find so attractive about it?
Hi, everybody. For us, what we appreciate about these initiatives is that we have the opportunity to work together on systemic challenges that are beyond a single company or beyond a single actor to solve. So it makes a lot of sense from our perspective to join forces here and work together. And especially for what we have heard now in the context of Vietnam, there's also much to learn, right? I mean, the issue of agrochemical and agro-inputs is not a new one, yet the best practices and the solutions are to be developed and to be implemented in order to keep also the viable business for the farmers at the end of the day. So what we appreciate about this initiative is the holistic approach. Of course, it's an environmental topic, it has economic implications, but it also looks at the social aspects of using agrochemicals and how this can be made more sustainable. Well, what I could mention, and I guess we have touched upon that, is also for the constellation to work. I feel this is quite promising here. We have the support and the engagement of the government, of the Vietnamese government and the VCCB, which I consider quite important in order for us to have a long-lasting impact and we'll also have the expertise from the ground. And we do have the private sector, the public sector engaged. We would like to have more actors involved, of course, and I think that's also why we're here today to encourage others to join. Yet I see that the constellation as we have it is already quite promising for this to join and to have different perspectives being merged. So of course we have our own perspective from headquarters. It is aligned with our strategy, but we have also heard that from the Vietnamese experts, and we have the support from those that work actually locally and have insights into how to involve the government, how to actually involve the farmers, and how to also involve suppliers and everybody else along the supply chain. So that's quite, I think, a good starting point.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that, the importance of, or what you like about the collective action initiatives and the collective approach, and especially also here the agro-inputs, the responsible use in Vietnam. Thank you very much, Tiana. Tiana said that we are inviting more participants here. Let's have a quick look at some more theoretical stuff. Of course, something like this initiative needs a setup, coordination and roles, which will be the co-funding partners and representatives. One representative of the Vietnamese Coffee and Coordination Board will have a seat on the steering committee. What does the steering committee do? They give a strategic direction for this initiative, for the content, for the annual plans and budgets to approve them. But if there are any additional participants coming in additionally throughout the 4.5 years, it will also then be decided if additional topics or certain areas will be scaled. For that, because not all are experts on topics, there will be an advisory team with expertise on certain areas, be it agrochemicals or health issues and so forth, to be invited to give their views and share their insights. The initiative will be managed by the team in the GCP team in Vietnam. They will do the coordination, contract also the implementing partners of this initiative, and monitor the progress and the financial management, and also the communication will be with the team, always in alignment of the participants of the initiative, and then also the implementing partners for the applied field research component, and the policy development will also be managed by the team in Vietnam. So that is sort of the administrational setup. Let's look at a little bit at timelines. What is happening now and is ongoing, we are discussing now of, with additional participants here for joining. And we already have some very interested potential participants. Look, it's very promising, so I'm pleased to talk about that. In June, Jung has mentioned we are going to officially start the collective action initiative with an inception phase of 3 months, where additional staff will come on board to manage the initiative, but also to tender for implementers. And in August, we will then have the official launch. If the situation of COVID-19 permits that, we would see that maybe we have a little event in Vietnam to officially launch this initiative. So these are roughly the next dates, what's happening. And as Tiana has said, and C have also invited you to join, we would like to discuss with you as to contribute to improve the coffee farmers' responsible use of agro-inputs in Vietnam. In some areas, this is already going well, but certainly not in all. We'd like to invite you to work jointly with your peers, with the partners, share the risks also. More eyes see more and have more experience, but harvest and scale the learnings together. Leverage your resources and knowledge and reach further through smart co-funding. So yes, there is of course a financial contribution involved with this as well, depending on size and type of your organization, GCP member or non-member, that would define the contribution. But in the end, it's to ensure really that the impact of this initiative goes further than the 4.5 years, because that's what we're trying to do. That's why we engage also with local structures and give policy recommendations to the government that this initiative goes beyond the 4.5 years. What are then the next steps, and are you interested, which we hope we could trigger this interest in you. Discuss with us further. Please get back to us. If you have any questions, if you would like to understand more details, of course, in a little bit over an hour, we cannot cover everything. Become part of this initiative. It's an innovative approach, collective action initiatives. We are still learning ourselves and improving them as we move along. And of course, we also promote your name if you are participating in these initiatives in various ways. For example, in this webinar, but also in other events, in GCP's membership assembly, in the Espresso, our newsletter, on the website, on progress reports. So there are various ways also the participants benefit. And we would like to answer a few of them. Let's see if we can get through all of them. Let me check some time. Yes, we do still have like 10 minutes, 10, 12 minutes. With that, I'd like to hand over to Dr. Dave DeHaze and back to Chung to sort the question and answer section. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carol, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. We got indeed quite a few questions. Maybe I will start off with answering two of them, and then I will hand over for a few others to my colleague, Mr. Chung. Maybe a first one, the first question that arose was who will actually implement the first phase of this collective action initiative. Caroline showed already the organigram, the structure of the program, but while GCP will be hosting and managing the program, we have discussed this internally, and we decided that it would be good to try and find the best knowledge and expertise out there. So for each activity package, we will actually have a small terms of reference, and we will tender each package to make the initiative competitive and try to get the most relevant expertise in the program. Another element I think is important to mention in this regard is that we are trying to align with other initiatives. In Vietnam at the moment, there are quite a few international research initiatives, also with a focus on coffee and pepper, for example, with a focus on the use of pesticides. So we try as much as possible to align there to see what can be shared and to learn from the different programs, to exchange. Then there was a very practical question, say what are the concrete activities? I think Mr. Chung has tried to explain that we have quite a lot on our to-do list. Actually, most of these things are very practical activities. I mean, we're gonna, for example, survey in certain areas. I mean, geographically figure out where do we find high incidence of hazardous pesticides, for example, glyphosate. We're gonna do that through measurement. So it's not based on just interviewing farmers, but we try as much as possible to measure. So I think the program in itself, also if you look at the field research we are planning, this is going to be research which most likely will be conducted on the land of the formerly called Coffee Research Institute, which is currently called WASI in Vietnam. So we want to set up those experiments very practically. So these are very concrete activities. Another important element here is that we're going to develop a very concrete monitoring and evaluation system. The goal here is not to just tick a few compliance criteria just by asking the farmers, okay, are you applying X, Y, or Z? Is this creating benefit? What does this mean in monetary terms? But we will try to measure as much as possible. So I think that's very important. We try to be very much impact oriented. Two other questions that came in, which I would like to hand over to my colleague, Mr. Chung, is one is, I mean, we talk about agro-inputs, but is this just pesticides, or does this also include fertilizers or fungicides or other types of products? And there were also a few questions related to the use of smartphones. So maybe, Mr. Chung, if you could elaborate a little bit more on those questions.
Thank you very much, Dave. We have some question over here. The first one focus asking about agrochemical input that we mentioned in the initiative. So yes, over here, for this initiative, we focus on the pesticides and herbicide and hazardous chemicals and the other weed management practice alternative for that. You know that we are not working on fertilizers. From our research of the situation and the destination countries focus right now is imposing stricter and stricter regulation on MIL, and actually from various researchers say that the residual level and thing like that is came from a lot from the pesticide and herbicide. Therefore, in this initiative, with the resources available, we really focus on the pesticide and herbicide only, and also, as we mentioned before, we also testing and introducing others environment-friendly, others weed management practice and alternative measure for that. We saw another question intriguing about the smartphone app. Yes, actually, in 2019, IDH and Department of Plant Protection have been working together and developing a pesticide app, in which that they developing the list of the and update the list of banned pesticides, herbicide, I mean chemical in general, and also the allow one, and all of that have been updated and uploaded to the app. Furthermore, there are also some other function in which it allow the user to check for further information and regarding the chemical. So far, it have been the app have been launched and used by the coffee stakeholder. Within this initiative, we focus very much on the responsible use of the agro input, specifically focus on the agrochemicals and the alternative. So we want to work further on this app together with Department of Plant Protection and further promote for this app, because we strongly believe that this is a very useful and one more and more stakeholder use this one. They're going to very good channel to improve the knowledge, the understanding of the stakeholder regarding the pesticide, herbicide, how to use it properly, how to use it responsibly. Another question about the percentage of coffee who have smartphone. Actually, we GCP and others NGO and also private sector have been working a lot on that, and we so far, we're also working on the data collection for the measurement of the changes. And all of that have been working through the digital platform. So truly speaking, we don't have the exact statistic of the percentage of coffee farmer who has smartphone. But you know, if we have been working over there, we see a lot. Of course, we can see that for some elderly farmer, so who are used to work who still using the old kind of phone only. But for the rest, is most of them using many others kind of smartphone right now. And we believe that in the future, the ratio of people using smartphone going to increase. And that would be a very good thing for for us to have to promote the use of some kind of digital platform, digital app for the how say transparency and management of the very sensitive, very critical issue of the pesticides.
Thank you, Mr. Chung. I don't know how much time we still have, but maybe I can still take 2 questions. Sure. There is a question here on what is more important? I mean, restricting the use of glyphosate or raising awareness of farmers on the risks of excess use of agrochemicals. I believe that both are important, but how to prioritize them on the timeline is a bit difficult to answer. I think we'll work on both. Of course, from a business perspective, it is important that we do something about the maximum residue levels and make sure that there is no issue with regard to export of coffee out of Vietnam because of excessive use of glyphosate. So that is, of course, a priority, but at the same time, we will be working continuously on awareness raising on the use of agro-inputs for farmers. We will, for example, start off by developing a small, simple manual on good weeding practices. That can be the use of chemicals, but also alternative uses. And we will already introduce, and we will already from day one actually start to raise awareness, while at the same time we will develop or implement on research plots, research trials, and when new information is coming in, we will update this information and will also convey these messages to the farmers. And then a last question that I got here is more related. The question is like, shall we also look into the issue of agrochemicals and the effects on the environment and users' health? This is of course very important. You know that we can go very broad in this program, but starting it, we have decided actually to scope and to not immediately include it. But as I mentioned earlier, we are trying to align with programs that are already ongoing or in the pipeline. So there may be a focus on more health and environment related topics. So there we try to capture that information. And another thing is that, as Caroline mentioned, I mean, we are inviting more partners to join this initiative. I think this is a living initiative which is just starting. And if we manage to get more funding together, we can together think about what are other priorities which we can tackle together as sector players together. So I think this is in a nutshell. I think that we covered most of the questions that have been raised by the audience. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. Thank you, Chung, for taking a few questions. There are more. We have not been able to answer them all, but we can check who asked them and get back to you with answers. That leaves me with finishing off this webinar. We invite again you to become part of this initiative. Please contact us, whatever your questions may be. Here are our contact details of myself and Chung. But this leaves only for me to thank you for participating, your interest in this topic. It is important. It's not the only country working on it. And in these challenging times, I'd like to say, stay safe, stay healthy, get in touch with us. I thank again for our guest to contribute, and I wish you all a very good day.